You're listening to Warwickshire Wildlife Trust's podcast from the Hideout Bird Hide at Brandon Marsh Nature Reserve. I'm your host, Bob Hockenhull. Now, the quality of our water has been a big topic in recent years, with real concern about the amount of pollution. This, of course, not only has serious implications for we humans, but also for the wildlife in and around rivers, streams and lakes. Warwickshire Wildlife Trust has its own Wild for Water campaign to help highlight the importance of clean water. And with me to discuss that today is Campaigns Officer Catherine Craig and Alex Jones, who works on river projects in the county. Welcome to you both. Catherine, first of all, why is the Trust running this water awareness campaign?
So in recent years, we've been looking at the quality of water across Coventry, Warwickshire and Solihull, and looking at the causes of pollution in our waterways. We want to raise the importance of clean water, both for people and wildlife, and show and celebrate what wildlife relies on our waterways.
And have you been surprised at how much pollution there is in the waterways in the county?
That's a great question. I think both surprised and with how much pollution has gone into our waterways, the fact that the water quality is so low is unsurprising. And when we're looking at the type of human behaviour that's contributed to that, it's not surprising, but that there are things that we can do to improve that.
And Alex, who's with you, is one of the people who's doing lots to improve waterways. That's your job. Give us an idea of some of the work the Trust does around local waterways.
Trust does loads of things across multiple teams. So I work on the Sherborne River. Yeah, we do loads of stuff. So it's a mix of physical interventions. So the River Sherborne has been, I think, marginalised and potentially even vandalised by people over the last 100 odd years. We're trying to put right the wrongs, so putting the river back into the original course it made for itself, creating wetland habitat for people to enjoy. And the wider team also does lots of work with young people, schools. We were out last week working with some pupils around the Charterhouse Heritage Park, which is one of our project sites, trying to explain to them why we're doing what we're doing and promote our work for future generations. And talking of water quality, we also do river fly analysis. So it's engaging local people with their water quality of their stretch of the river and sort of empowering them to monitor that and report it when something's gone wrong. And the mechanism we use for that is invertebrate sampling. So using river flies, mayflies would be the main, most famous species, but there's a group of 8 species. And we sort of kick around in the river, catch them in a net, and see if the population's normal. And the reason we do that is because they're really pollution intolerant. So if suddenly the mayfly population starts to look like it's disappearing, that means that something's gone wrong, probably further up the river, and it gives us the reason to discuss with statutory agencies, Severn Trent, the EA, people like that, and see if we can investigate what's gone wrong and find a solution.
And obviously you're telling children, you're telling the people who live around the rivers that this is what you're doing. I mean, do you think they're fully engaged? Have you found that they've been very responsive to your campaigning?
Yeah, I've had a couple of really nice moments recently. So I was talking about the issues we have with the sort of physical way the river is, how it's been changed. And one of the big problems for me as someone who tries to renaturalise and make rivers more friendly for wildlife is they get canalised or over-deepened and made much too wide. So they end up, for example, one of our project sites, Lakeview Park, prior to some of the works that were done, you could walk along the park and probably not really know there was a river there because it's about 1 metre down in a ditch. And we've done things like widening the river, shallowing the banks, and that gives people an opportunity to interact with the river. So there was actually a project done before the one I did in about 2017 by the Wetlands team, which created an area that the locals now call the beach. And when you walk along the park now, that's where people go with the dog, go with their kids, and things like that to enjoy the river, interact with it, and build that relationship and that love for their local patch, their local nature. And I think one of the things that really cheered me up, we did some work on the brook that runs through the park, and I saw some kids with fishing nets and jam jars catching sticklebacks about a week after we'd finished work. And that's one of the reasons we do it, is to engage people with nature, and seeing that sort of thing is really special when you've been involved in doing it. So
yeah, it must be really rewarding, actually. I mean, are there some people, though, that do question the water work that you're doing? Are they not interested? Is it difficult to engage some people?
I think a lot of people have been engaged so far because it's something that's impacting people's livelihoods. Our source of clean water is important for humans, so people do have a concern around what their local waterways like, and part of the campaign is, making people understand that although their tap in their kitchen is clean, the river 5 minutes down the road might not be, and what's the relationship between that and the process that water companies have to get to make that water safe to drink again.
And it's a year-long campaign. Give us a flavour of what other things you'll be doing then.
Yeah, so we've got lots of different things planned so people can get involved in different events or talks. There'll be a water blitz for people to do their own water quality testing in their own area. We'll be working with key decision makers such as MPs, councillors, mayors, and talking with local water companies as well about what behaviour has caused pollution in our area. There'll also be lots of different actions that people can take, so they can submit something creative to our Craftivism art exhibition, which is a combination of crafting and activism, and people can do a display that either shows their relationship with water, so their love for water, a nice memory, or a hobby that they have to do with water, or it could be a concern for water. So is their local river showing signs of pollution, or is somewhere that they used to swim when they were younger now inhabitable? And they can also get involved with our water projects with the Rivers team, and they can actually go out and volunteer if they want a hands-on approach to this campaign. They can also contact their local MP, let them know that this is on their constituents' mind, let them know that local people in their area are concerned about clean water.
Are you almost asking the public to be the eyes and ears on behalf of the Trust, perhaps telling you about pollution incidents and actually doing some of the physical work to improve water?
Exactly, and if people do spot pollution, they can go on to Severn Trent's website and report it directly to the water company, who can then do something about it imminently.
So Alex, you were talking about positive things earlier, for example, the stickleback story, but I mean, you've worked in waterways for quite a while. How frustrating has it been for you in recent years that, there's been so much highlighting of pollution problems in the media? I mean, does it just make you want to tear your hair out?
It's always very frustrating to see things in the field. So a big part of my job is kind of working with local groups or just walking along the river to look at habitat. And if you see a patch of sewage fungus or an obvious misconnection or issue with things going into the river that definitely shouldn't be, it's very frustrating when you're working so hard with those communities to improve things. But in a way, the wider sort of national media, for example, highlighting these issues is good because it makes people want to work with us and want to learn these skills of how to report, how to recognise pollution, or to want to campaign and work with things like the current campaign going on. So, I suppose from a selfish point of view, the awareness is really, really good. And we're always working hard to create opportunities for people to, get some mud on their boots and come out and help us to be part of the solution.
And obviously waterways were a lot less polluted decades ago. What have we lost? Can you give us some examples, given that we have had quite a lot of problems with pollution?
So there's so many different pressures on our waterways that are causing issues. So pollution's a major one, and you'll see with pollution it's often quite localised and it can have a very sudden impact. So, for example, on the Sherborne, you could get a sewage misconnection issue, either domestic or from a main sewer, or chemical pollution from business or other places. And that could overnight wipe out the invertebrate community, which then prevents fish from feeding, which then up the chain could result in a loss of, apex predators like otters, which we are starting to see return to Coventry. There's also pressures from things like invasive species along the watercourse. So one of the, really sad losses has been native crayfish over the past few decades. And in Coventry, certainly you see a lot of signal crayfish, which are non-native species. But again, I like to try and cling to the hopeful things when you're doing this kind of work, 'cause it keeps you wanting to work hard and come back to work. So things like the otter returning. So at Charterhouse Heritage Park, we started to see signs that maybe otters are accessing the city again. And I know there's a lot of really exciting work across the wider trust in partnership to make water voles welcome when they recolonise Coventry and hopefully end up on the main river. I think we lost them in the early 2000s.
I've done some work myself actually trying to bring the water voles back and putting in shelter for them along the Coventry Canal and everything. Has any of that been successful yet? Have you spotted many water voles, or have there been reports?
So I think over lockdown, I think a lot more people are out walking the canals. So in around 2020, 2021, we start to see reports of voles on the Coventry Canal system. And with the work that's going on, I believe there's been a few more sightings over the past few years. And then it's about it's habitat permeability, which is a fancy way of saying making a little corridor for them to re-reach the river. So sites that we work on, like Lakeview Park, could potentially become a future water vole stronghold, with everyone pulling in the right direction. And another key thing is water quality, for them to generate the correct habitat to flourish.
So, Catherine, we talked about the positive things with engaging people. I mean, do you still have problems, though, with perhaps vandals causing, pollution or whatever in the rivers? Are you still having to fight that?
Yeah, so recently our Sherborne team did a outfall safari, which is when they go into a river and look at, as Alex said, the misconnections, but they also found sightings of dumping, so people putting items into the river. So there was a sofa, a cabinet, a golf club, lots of different items, and people are seeing it as a place that they can put litter in, and that's not obviously what a river is for. So our team have gone in and with a great team of volunteers and pulled that stuff out.
So at the end of your year-long campaign, what would be your greatest achievement you would hope to gain?
So we would love to be working with communities, so specifically communities have lost a connection with their local waterways, so their places to swim, to meet, to play. People are worried about their dogs going into waterways now and becoming ill. So we want to empower local communities to have a trust back in their waterways. Also working with local water companies to see an improvement in water quality across Coventry, Warwickshire and Solihull, and also to have the backing from our key decision makers in our area. So as I said earlier, our MPs, our councillors, our mayors, the people who are making decisions in our area, we want to see them backing cleaner water.
And Alex, you've mentioned otters coming back to Coventry. Are there any other species during this project or even beyond it that you would ideally love to see back that perhaps are not at, you've mentioned water voles as well, but are there any others?
As someone who works in river restoration, the big species that I always want to see is trout. So a lot of the habitat work we do is focused on getting the habitat right for trout, and they're a lovely species, but they're also a great thing to see because they're the sign of a healthy river. So everything else needs to be in place for the trout to flourish. So they need the right habitat, good, well oxygenated water, and lots of food in the form of invertebrates and things. So the project we finished recently at Charthouse is a great example where we've done things like adding gravels to the river, which will then enable the trouts to nest. So I make things called reds where they kind of burrow into a gravelly bottomed river and lay their eggs. So my real wish for the future would be to see some trout reds in urban Coventry. That'd be fantastic.
Yeah, let's hope that happens. Money is always an issue with these things, and the more money that is put into conservation, then the better results you'll get. But presumably there is a very limited amount of resources to go into things like this.
So it's always nice to have money. I think with river restoration on the ground, there are thankfully a lot of techniques that don't cost a lot. So we can do things like pinning logs into the river to deflect the flows and try and renaturalise things slowly. And that's something that's accessible to do with local volunteers and a little bit of timber and a big hammer. But having these larger project fundings like the current National Lottery Heritage funded project that I'm working on, it sort of empowers us to be much, much more ambitious. So that sort of higher level of funding has enabled us to do things like move a brook completely into its original course, create a really ambitious large suite of ponds and wetland things in the floodplain at Lakeview Park, and do some really exciting work at Charthouse Heritage Park. And the other thing that funding allows us to do is work with people. So there's a really fantastic people-focused bit of work we're doing. So one of the outcomes of that has been the formation of a local friends group for Lakeview Park recently. And that's empowering local people to do their bit, and hopefully that'll last for decades now with really engaged local people. Yeah.
Excellent. And hopefully people listening to this will have been inspired to help. Catherine, what do they do if they want to get involved?
Yes, they can head to our website at the Warwickshire Wildlife Trust and type in Wild for Water, and on our website there's all the ways that people can get involved with different actions, and they can sign up to our Nature News, which comes out fortnightly, where they'll get updates about the campaign and different things that they can get involved with as the campaign goes on throughout the year.
Great. Well, it's been really inspiring to hear about all these species that are coming back due to your work. So good luck with the year-long campaign, and thanks for speaking to us, Catherine and Alex.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much.
You've been listening to Warwickshire Wildlife Trust's podcast with me, Bob Hockenhull. If you'd like to find out more about the Trust, visit our website at warwickshirewildlifetrust.org.uk.